Hi, everyone. I'm Utahime, and I'm so excited to be able to host Interview with a Monster, a horrifyingly fun discussion with two talented writers and creators who are dear, dear friends to our Initiative Order community. I would like to welcome Beth the Bard and Jaden King. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedules, because you guys are insanely busy these days, to chat with me today. I want to take this opportunity for those who may not, even though you guys should know who these people are, have a chance for you guys to introduce yourselves and your pronouns, and share with everyone who's watching how you guys got involved in the tabletop community to begin with. I'm starting with Beth.
Oh. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget what to say. Hello everyone, I'm Beth the Bard. I go by she, her. I am a professional DM and a layout designer, TTRPG publisher. Jay and I started Bard House Media, which is going to do very big things throughout the next couple of years. I also created TTRPG University. I wrote She is the Ancient, a gender bent Curse of Strahd. I am one of the team of people with Women of D&D / now called Women of TTRPG. And I've also got 2 spots left at my table for D&D in a castle. I think that's everything.
Yeah,
I think
so
I got
sign up, guys. Do the thing.
I have a discount code if you want. Hit me up.
We love a good discount. We love a good discount. Now over to Jaden King.
Well, if you didn't know me, now you do. It's Jaden King. All social media at It's Jaden King. I use any and all pronouns, but if you're going to refer to me, do so with respect. Professional storyteller, game master, and performer. I'm all over the place doing all kinds of things. I really get engaged on as many communities as I can, including GaryCon Live, where I'm part of the GAX Packs, the Initiative Order, Ekrim Expeditions, where I get to actually play alongside our wonderful interviewer for this experience. And I got to contribute a lot more to writing, game design, and mechanics, because professional storytelling as a professional actor is where I sit strongest and develop that. I'm also doing D&D in the castle. I think I have 2 seats as well. You can check that out. I also have a discount code, so you can message me as well to get that. And that's like the basics of who I am and what I do. You're welcome.
And you already have the headpiece perfect for the castle. You're already ready.
I made the joke when I got it. I was like, of course they're going to bite a king to a castle.
Of course.
As long as they have my throne ready.
Yes, and a queen as well.
The Queen of Horror specifically.
Exactly. And we'll be getting to that soon, but I want to know, how did you both begin working together creatively? And I'm sure some of the viewers might want to know as well for Bard House.
Oh, me? Why me? Okay. Like the beginning, like the Jay and Beth origin story, or like
however far back you want to go, just so that way they know like how this amazing duo came together.
So we met on a stream run by Fenway Jones called...
I love Fenway.
What was it called?
Angels in the City of Glass.
Angels in the City of Glass. I was a goblin. Jay was a...
Shifter barbarian.
And we were like, hey! Yeah, you take it from there.
So we spent time collaborating as being co-performers, and then eventually I got invited to the first live play that Beth ran for She is the Ancient, where I brought a character to play with her. And at some point we ended up going to Gen Con as being like, hey, you're going, I'm going, we're friends, let's do that. And we spent more time just kind of chatting about like creative exploits, ideas, and over time we ended up finding out we liked each other and started dating. And our professional works didn't even start after that immediately. It kind of was like, oh, I guess we'll work on something. And at that point, we were considering expanding some more Dread domains in Ravenloft. We couldn't figure out where to go specifically, but I emphasize that I was really great with writing. That's all I really did, because I've talked about Deep Breath, my world building, and that is a very creative writer in the way it's the delivery, making it make sense for comprehension in a lot of ways, but more so her layout abilities and graphic design. And we kind of just kept going that path of being like, I can write really well, and she's grammatically a genius, so she's my editor, but also I'm her mechanical designer. So together we realized, like, when we pass a project, we handle 50-50 in a way that goes back and forth,
we literally, like, our desks are like, our desks touch like this. Mine literally goes underneath his. Because there's
love
not
that.
enough room.
But it sounds like the perfect partnership and collaboration because
It's what we just pass things
the
back and
strong
forth.
suits of both of you guys go together
Uh-huh.
perfectly, which is a great combination. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we get through projects. Like we found out from start to finish, we can handle everything together, and that
Yes.
we kind of carry that through like our relationship, both professionally and personally, is like
Yeah.
really bouncing back and forth.
Those
Especially
ideas.
because like I come from I'm black, in case no one recognized, and so I come from a different heritage culture, and so
Mhm.
we get to share each other's history,
It's awesome.
experiences, and perspective in life. With my
Mhm.
black focus and how I grew up, and Beth presents a lot of femme acknowledgement, things that I would have
Yeah.
never considered as a man, and so
Yeah.
we gain a stronger perspective through one another. And I can say without a doubt, Beth has made me a better person, and which has made me a more effective professional. And that's kind of
Yeah.
like how our dynamic has grown to where we're at.
And it's always better when you have someone to bounce ideas off of and work with instead of just doing
Mhm.
things solo. I
Hmm.
feel it's always great to have that partner, especially for creative purposes like this. And now, Daughter of Frankenstein. I remember being a young girl when I first was reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it's just being one of those iconic pieces of literature that really it's very memorable and it sticks with you. But then also too, I grew up, which I don't know if you guys did too, watching the black and white films with Frankenstein and Bride of
Yes.
Frankenstein, and just how much I loved the movie so much. Now, I want to know, was it a love for the book or for the movies that led to Daughter of Frankenstein? Like, I want to try to get more into what inspired, like, it was different works or fandoms that kind of inspired you guys to do this story.
So for me, honestly, it was the movies. I
Okay.
grew up extremely inspired by all of the black and white monster
Yeah.
films, all of the even like the stuff with the like 1930s German expressionist, Metropolis, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu, those things. My
Mhm.
favorite directors were like Guillermo del Toro and Tim Burton, and
Yeah.
pretty much anything and everything that was like creepy, atmospheric, horror. I did read a lot too, like Anne Rice, R.L. Stein, Darren
Yeah.
Shan, all this stuff, right? I couldn't get enough of that, but like it was the visual side of things that totally, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this, but it messed me up in the best way.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to do was grow up and be a film director because I wanted to be able to like visually portray all of these exciting things that I had like brewing and
in your head,
Yeah. That didn't work out, and I don't know how that would ever work out, but hey, there are other outlets for doing those things, like TTRPG publications.
Of course. Jaden?
Unfortunately, I'm not actually influenced in the same thing that Beth is influenced at all in this perspective, because I never really watched those classic films,
Oh,
nor did I actually
interesting.
read the original books in any way or
Oh.
form.
Mhm.
My inspiration comes from more so video games that I have played and the
Okay.
occasional animes I've watched. A lot of the aspects of the reanimation perspective and the
Mhm.
horror built in things that aren't normally horrifying. I like Steins Gate, Metro, Redux,
Yeah.
and those things that show the human psychology and
Mhm.
makes magic of science. I'm more of like the logical brain, so my inspiration was trying to figure out how I can make things possible. And I
Yeah.
love the idea of how electricity makes things animate,
Yeah.
how the horror is not so grand, like there's a Lich King. It's more grounded in like what
Mhm.
could be possible. I think my close inspiration, funny enough, is less on those and more towards like Antov's with the iRobot and the laws of robotics, and almost more Blade Runner science fiction elements that are much more
Okay.
futuristic. And that's
Mhm.
a lot of my inspiration, is those elements, and then finding out how to strip it down to
Got
its
you.
mechanical, like
Mhm.
how to make it possible and playable. So like my inspirations are completely different in that
But yeah, it's
aspect.
still, I feel like there is still that cohesion within that. So even though it's different, it's still connected, I feel. So that
Absolutely.
Yeah,
works
yours is all
perfectly.
how do we make this make sense? Mine is all like I think my entire creative focus is atmosphere. How
Mhm.
do you feel? How does it feel
Mm.
at the table?
Now,
The
Funny you
Kickstarter
should
page
mention
itself is
that.
all atmosphere.
Funny you should mention that because I'm doing my first segue into the setting and the atmosphere. What can people expect from this compared to other, D&D adventures that they may have gone on before?
That's a really big question. Jay, you start it so that I can wrap my mind around it and then follow it up.
Oh, this is where I think I talk the most about the thing. So Daughter of Frankenstein is, I think the way it's become is less of an adventure. It
Mm-hmm.
is a performance in which the players are participants of the show, and they are integral to the story in one way or another. And so you experience
Awesome.
a world that is going to exist regardless of your involvement, but you are forced to be part of it. Like, as if the way I can imagine is picture going to an opera and you see the actors on stage doing their performances, and then out of nowhere, they pull you onto stage. You are your characters, you know what you can do, and they say the play will go on. How you react to it can
Mm-hmm.
change the story. So the way it works is the story will keep moving, and your
Yeah.
actions changes the eventual outcome of the final play. And so it's broken up like a play in multiple acts. So you can go through act 1, 2, and 3, or you can go through each act individually because you can only do sections and pieces, and allows you to participate in the sections you are most driven towards, and also parts you may not be so preferable towards. Maybe you're not combat focused, exploration,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a little bit of everything because the world is always changing and you get to react. So it's almost as if you're driving on the railroad without the DM having to do it for you because the story is alive. See what I did there? It's alive.
Alive. It's
And
alive.
It's a lot
and I
more
think
narrative too than
Yep.
other. Like I've had to learn a lot about what narrative TTRPG actually means because of
Yeah.
this whole fiasco in January. I actually I've only ever done 5e, and so
Yeah.
I actually toyed with other TTRPGs at the beginning of this year and was like, oh
Mhm.
wow, this is like we can just cutscene the things, and we can just it's
Yeah.
a very different vibe from taking 2 hours to make it down the hallway or something. Because
For
in
sure.
D&D that can happen
That can, and
very
it takes
easily.
forever to
How
just
long
get
does it take to
past.
open the door? Or we could just cutscene through the door because that's not important. We're getting to the story. So that has
Right.
been a really prominently
Mhm.
interesting thing for me in this process, is doing 5e but narrative.
Yeah. And then what inspired or went into the type of setting? Because I saw different things being thrown around as far as dark academia and steampunk. So since I know that you love to explain the inspirations, because I know that you have a lot of ideas in your head at any given time, I want to hear kind of what went into that developing it more.
Yeah, so I know I throw around a lot of this is inspired by this, and this because I want people to be able to emotionally connect. I actually run my games like that too,
Mhm.
rather than just explaining a scene. I'll be like, you remember that scene in this one movie, how this, and players are like, oh my god, and I'm like, that.
Yeah.
I don't even describe it. I'm like, remember that feeling when you watch it. So that's
Yeah.
why I end up being like, oh, this is inspired by Penny Dreadful, Full Metal Alchemist, Frankenstein, Jack the Ripper, things like that, so people can make those emotional associations and
Mhm.
get that vibe.
Yep.
I forgot what the actual question was.
No, it's basically, it's one of those kind of open-ended because of the fact that the setting, and you guys are still developing the setting even as we're talking now. You guys have been working on this with an amazing team, so it's just kind of giving the audience a taste for what they can expect and what type of atmosphere this kind of presents to them where they're playing.
So yeah, it started out as a Lamortia setting and campaign.
Mhm.
So if anybody knows anything about Ravenloft and Lamortia, that very Frankenstein, magic isn't exactly magic. It's more science-based, that type of
Science,
stuff.
okay.
And then as we moved it more into Frankenstein fanfiction instead of Ravenloft fanfiction, it expanded further. And so Act 1, I believe, if I'm trying to remember the exact Act 1 is, the whole setting is very inspired by Penny Dreadful, if anybody's ever seen that. I didn't know how we were going to include magic in a way that felt right, and so
Yeah.
the magic in Penny Dreadful, the way it's this supernatural cultish type stuff. I was like, oh, that's the vibe. That's it right there. So
and I haven't seen the show yet. So now I'm intrigued because I've heard about it, but now what you're saying is
honestly a
making
crappy
me like,
show.
Is it?
It's so bad. Like, I hate the story. I hate how it ended, but the
no.
atmosphere of it is the atmosphere
See, the way that
I
you
wanted.
okay, so it's like I need to be more concerned with Daughter of Frankenstein than Penny Dreadful right now. It's fine. It's fine.
And then what else was I think I already mentioned basically the one track one is Jack the Ripper. Sherlock Holmes is a big inspiration.
Oh, so fun.
The show called The Irregulars, which is like a combo of Penny Dreadful and Sherlock Holmes, and it's like that dark supernatural, like breaking the veil kind of mystery stuff. I was like, yes, this. Act 2 takes you out of the city and is very inspired by, if anybody's seen the movie Annihilation. I was talking about how I wanted the wilderness and stuff to be, and Jay was like, you need to see this movie, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, that's it. So a lot of that, Pinocchio, I'm not going to say how, but Pinocchio's in there. As an
no spoilers. You'll have to find out.
And then the third one is very Resident Evil, not necessarily like all the games. Resident Evil Village has some inspiration, but it's actually mostly the Resident Evil TV show on Netflix.
Oh.
We attached very strong to some of the components of that, and we're like, oh, this. Full Metal Alchemist, things like that. I'm just repeating myself. Babe, jump in.
Now, are we talking about the Resident Evil, the computer animated one, or are we talking about the live action?
The live action.
Gotcha. Okay. Just in case, because I know that there's people might have been like asking, like, you know, I know that I've seen the animated, not the live action. So that's why I was curious too.
Oh, and Midsommar.
Oh, and Midsommar. Ooh. Ooh.
Jay hates that movie.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard. I've heard through the grapevine.
It's
be ready.
Good
like buckle
horror.
up. Buckle up.
Like the next book that's going to be based on folk horror is going to be heavy on Midsommar type vibes and related. So just so good.
Now we kind of touched on it a little bit, talking about the 5e adaptation and making it compatible with Dungeons and Dragons. I want to know if there was any difficulty with this type of setting and this style of campaign, the narrative style that you kind of touched on a little bit, to make this work for 5e. Like, was there any issues that you experienced or complications in trying to kind of change like spells and how magic worked, the different like other elements of that? How were you guys able to do that? So then that way, those who are familiar with 5e, it was something that they could kind of at least comprehend in a way or make the connection to D&D.
Jay's face. This has been such a thing.
Because I'm sure it doesn't seem like it would be easy. Like, it doesn't seem like, oh, this is just, and we write it and it's boom, done. It seems like this would take time. And I'm just curious about that process.
It's for sure a thing. And it's one of those things where we're like, we're going to publish this in 5e and the next couple in 5e, but then at some point we need to take the setting and put it on a totally different system.
Okay. So there are plans for it to be compatible with other systems potentially in the future.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. But you know what, Jay, you can go ahead, because you have a lot more to say on this one.
I have too much to say. The struggle we kind of semi-faced was the fact that D&D is inherently based with so much magical potential, and even like low magic settings have a bit of a struggle. However, what we were able to accommodate was that magic doesn't intrinsically have to be so heavily involved or so simple. We found a way to make things more complicated without having the players deal with the complications by going a sense of gritty realism in a way. And using the inspiration of Penny Dreadful and Full Metal Alchemist. For those that are familiar with those aspects of the occult nature of energy and sacrifice and the equivalent exchange, we take those elements and we diminish how intense magic is by making the cost affect the people and the environment. Magic is inherently something that's altering the world. Yes. And so we take the aspect of that truth and say that the world that is manipulated is yours. In perspective of your life, the life you will live, and the lives of those around you. So magic in itself doesn't change, but we emphasize the consequences of magic.
Okay.
And so, sure, be a caster, but just know magic has a price, and you can either, you know, find something to pay the price for you, or take out a loan against magic and pay it worse later. This takes the rules of three, the rules of time. And so, as you play your characters, the more you use magic, the more you will cause problems in the world around you. So, a quick solution now becomes a bigger problem later. So, it forces you to really think about if you want to use your magic, is now the time? And is there an optimal way to do this? And this is caused a beautiful change I think me and Beth love the most, is players no longer just throw spells around. They think. You have wizards and other casters who are used to just throwing spells, being like, should I do it now? Which spell do I use? I need
Eldritch Blast.
Yeah, you have exactly. You have people who are like, oh, I can Eldritch Blast everything, being like, if I cast a cantrip, is somebody gonna die? Like, even cantrips have a cost that can be dire, and so it forces people to think. But enemies
really
are
awesome.
stronger than you. Everything is grounded. So if you can't use magic,
It's horror.
you're horror. You're a normal person, and other people are just as normal, but some are willing to pay the price when you're not. So
it's like raising the stakes too as you go along, which is interesting.
It goes really well in the playtests I've been running. I this one group I've had for like 2 years ran up to Curse of Strahd and stuff, and they were just absolute chaos goblins. Just I do this, right? And they're and now that we're in Promethea, they're like, I'm gonna talk to that NPC and figure out an alternative way to deal with this. And I'm like, oh, so proud of you.
Yeah, I think I've tested it a bit in my my start playing games. I kind of start implementing this cost value, and so my players, every time they meet someone, they are now writing down every person they meet, because they realize that information is just as powerful. And even still, they're like, do I use my resources now, because I may not have them later? And they really start to think when they have their key points, and they're like, oh, I'll just use Stunning Strike, but will I need this to run later, to jump? The barbarian's like, if I go in a rage now, will I need to survive something later? Everyone starts to remember that their character, as powerful they are, only manages resources. And I think that's how we really have made Daughter of Frankenstein come to life, by making consequences valid and emphasized.
I love that. That makes it so much fun. Now, I want to also too kind of discuss as far as the different leads and NPCs, the choices that you guys made, which I found really, really awesome. You have multiple female and POC leads and different characters in the story, and even outside of the story, many of the creatives behind the campaign are also female and people of color. And you don't often come across projects like this that make it their goal specifically to hire and tell stories that are POC and female centric. So I want to know what led to making this choice for the campaign, and how did you end up finding your various writers and creators to work on this project? And I know there's a few questions in there. There's like 2 different questions. So whichever one.
I will jump into how we found our writers for this project. So this book started out as Jay and me talking on the phone, living in different states, being like, we should do this thing. Oh my God, we'd be so good at working together. Yeah. And then like we started working on it, and we were like, this is a really big project, and I'm stressed, and I still have to work and pay bills. Yeah. So then I was like, hey, like, we've got friends and they like writing, and if we all like work together, like we could just like, you know, lift everyone up. And so this grouping has mostly been people that we have just met in the community that were like, I'm interested, and we were like, let's see your stuff, dope, let's do this. One woman on the team is I found her because she is the Ancient live stream for Reroll DxD.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I was like, I popped into the chat like on their first game, and it was like, oh hi, and they were like, is that the author? And then like we reached out, and then I found out she likes writing, so I was like, hey, come on, join us, you're a writer now.
One of us.
Another writer on the team is one of my private players who also played at my table at the castle this last year. Wants to break into publishing, so I was like, one of us, let's do this.
Bringing them on in, reel them in.
Another writer, I was very specifically, we needed to find one more writer because I was like, we need these other locations taken care of, and we just can't. And I was like, I know we know a bunch of people on Twitter and stuff like that, but I want to bring in somebody we don't personally know already. And so I actually went to Fiverr, and I was like, I'm like looking through, and like there's lots of white dudes on Fiverr that are like, world building. I'm like, that's cool, good for you. And then I found this woman, Gabby, and I'm looking at her prices. I was like, you are selling yourself so short. Like, your portfolio is amazing. What in the world? So I reached out and was like, hey, join.
And a lot of the creators you guys selected for the project are also newer tabletop authors, which is really, really amazing. So you're giving them a platform and a voice in the community, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the only people that have published stuff on the team before have been Pedro and me. Not even Jay.
No, I published recently, technically.
You published
Back
with
to
companies,
basics, and
but
it's still in process. So technically, I'm even unpublished.
And then Gabby's published some stuff.
Yeah, I think, to my understanding, everyone has written something and has done like self-published, like, oh, it's on drive-thru, here we go. Nothing really big. It's like little small things that we've kind of done. So in terms of like this, I think is everyone's first big project contribution to something to this magnitude. I think even Pedro has done like relatively smaller supplements, not like big core campaign style books.
But I
could be wrong.
Not exactly sure.
I'm not sure. But I know like this is a big project that I know a lot of us, myself included, this is my first time doing so much lifting in a big project. I mean, I've worked for a few other companies writing like, maybe a part of a chapter here of a supplement, some stat blocks here, some mechanics here, but this is my even first like big project.
That is awesome. That is so wonderful. And how important, because I know this had to be important for both of you, as Jaden as a person of color, and then Beth as a femme creator and writer, to make that choice, because some people probably, that's not always the easiest choice, is to have it focus on POC or female characters, and also to have these new writers who are also femme and POC representing. So I'm curious, why did you choose? Like, it's not necessarily sometimes the easiest path, but I'm always curious as far as the thought process for making certain choices like this.
I want to just lead off because I actually vividly remember how it started, the Lamortia path, because the question was a bunch of Ravenloft, and there were a lot of options, and Beth was torn between a couple ones. After like trying to consider what was next, after doing She is the Ancient, the whole focus was like, well, let's keep trying to do that femme focus. And then instead of doing just gender bent, we did see that the lead, the Dark Lord of Lamortia, was female. So we're already like, well, there's that. But then like, I don't remember the next conversation, but we doubled down and we're like, well, if she's already a woman.
I remember this phone call. We're like, okay, let's do Lamortia first, and bonus, she's already a woman, and Jay just goes, she has to be black.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
like, okay.
I just very aggressively was like, I need her to be black. I don't care what
You're
we
like,
do.
gray dreads,
that's
black.
it.
I was like, I'll reach out to Yorsi.
I remember that too, because I was like, I didn't want just like, oh, she has dark skin. We're like, I need black. I want dreads, but she's
black
older, so I want them gray dreads.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted black AF. I was like, I don't want like this mild tone. I want someone to be prominently black. I want to look at them and be like, there it is. And I think it was like partially because like at the time, Black Lives Matter, and then like Black Panther, and I was like, I don't want just some like mild browning. I want black. So we were like, like, can we have black? And she was like, all right, we'll get the art going. And I think as the story developed, we kind of like were like, why can't we have most of them be just not white? Like we were first like no white men, but we're like, well, they're already gonna be very prominent females. And I was like, well, we don't have to do only black, because I realized I was like, we just want less white, and so we just really double down on that.
2 white male NPCs.
Two? I don't even know. Oh yeah, that's right. Wait,
We have a whopping 2 of them.
I don't even remember this. I know there's one. I don't even remember who the other one is. Yeah, no, I think we like doubled down on like we were like, okay, so the Frankenstein we were using, the daughter, the main person that we've kind of showcased, we're like, all right, black. And then we're like, okay, we also have other factions, and we're like, black, black. And we're like, okay, let's not make everyone black. It's not like Wakanda. So then we started going through and being like,
yeah, it could be.
And so we started being like, and I think what really inspired the most recent one, at least for me, was watching the most recent Black Panther movie, which had the beautiful story of, you know, it can never bad with pronunciation, so I won't butcher it. But you had Wakanda and the underwater cultures and that blend. I was like, I remember almost getting emotional, and I was like, I love that. And so we were like, we'll just make it as colorful as possible. And we even made the joke that in like Black Panther, there's their one token white guy that they have who's involved. So we're like,
the Hobbit.
Yeah, so we're like, we need we're gonna have one token white guy just because we'll have him there. And that was our whole focus. We were like, no, we want female.
It's
prominent.
weird. Like how it has to be, and it's something that has to be super intentional, which is super weird. Because, like, we are a woman and a black man. It shouldn't have to be, like, such a constant, intentional, like, oh, crap, I defaulted to white male again.
Yes.
Like, on all of this. Why does that keep happening? So,
that's true. No, with storytelling, for sure. And I mean, sure, with She is the Ancient, you know, even that choice, you know, that you've made with the story, I think that again, this is just, like, kind of carrying over as far as the, you know, it being femme folk. Like I love the fact that consideration was given, because again, not every story has to be with, like, you know, the cis white male hero. We like to hear other stories told as well. For the for the choice of Daughter of Frankenstein, like, I want to know, as far as we talked about it and we touched on it, as far as like you being inspired by Mary Shelley, but mainly the movies and things like that. But of all the different choices for horror that were listed, why did Daughter of Frankenstein? Why was that, like, that's the one, that's the focus for our story? That's going to be the story that we write and have other writers come and collab with us on.
Like, you mean like Frankenstein versus all the other horror stories?
Yeah, exactly. Because of the fact that, you know, there were definitely a lot of choices, especially because of all the different inspiration. So I'm curious as far as if there was, you know, that was the one that you both were like, Daughter of Frankenstein, this feels right. What was that light bulb that clicked?
That was entirely because when we were talking about it at the beginning, and it was going to be a Lamortia book, and we were going to go try and make a publication for at least most of the domains of dread. We made a list of the domains of dread, and we were like, which are going to be the easiest mentally and emotionally for us to connect to, because we want to do those ones first. And so that was Lamortia and Tempest, because you know, classic monster horror, and then folk horror are really big ones for me. And like, I have to deeply emotionally connect to something before I can do any kind of work on it. Like, that's how my hyper focus works. So we just decided that, and because we were working on that, and Lamortia is purely Frankenstein fan fiction, we just kept running with it. So it just it was there. We were already doing it.
Jay, it was pretty much the same. Yeah, that was
I'll be honest, for me, it was mostly like I just tailored on wherever she was fitting. Funny enough, Tempest and Lamortia were not my top choices at all.
Oh, okay.
And not because I didn't want them, but because I had other ones that I was like, I really like this or that. But she was really drawn towards Tempest and then Lamortia. And for me, Tempest felt like it was going to be so hard, because from folk horror and like that was not something I was drawn towards. Because I run a lot of like modern and urban environments, I needed civilization to operate with. So like, out of the choices, Lamortia had a city. Like Tempest was very like it's very much Midsommar in nature, so it's very like maybe villages, a lot of hut cultures, maybe they're like inside of the forest. And I was like, I want something urban-ish. And so Frankenstein has electricity, so
we've got a city.
And there it was.
University.
So we just kind of doubled down on the one that appealed to her and let me live my joy of urban environments.
Fantastic. I like this. I love knowing what sparked that creative process, because it's, it's like, was it you were in a shower and then all of a sudden you're like, bam, that's the idea. There's always that story of how that became, the focus of whatever project you're working on. So I always love knowing that. So I had to go back a little bit, because I was like, you know what, I need to make sure that everyone knows what was that inspiration. Now, getting into the story a little bit more for Daughter of Frankenstein. Of course, we're trying to avoid spoilers, but can you expand upon the like a little brief synopsis of basically what this story is about and how like the players kind of fit into the tale? If there's a way to
Mr. Eloquence is going to start.
Okay. Trying to go through the non-spoiler approach. The premise.
I'll spoil everything and add things on accident.
Yeah. So using the opera form of very specifically being pulled into the play rather than the play being about the players was how the story starts itself. The events that pull you in are not the events that you were initially a part of. These events have been happening, hence why we talk about how Brooklyn has a history of, body snatching, kidnapping, and murders that are happening, but the rich don't care if it doesn't break the bottom line. It's very Victorian era, where people would work in these factories and then they would get sick, die, and they're like, if I have new workers, I don't care what's happening. Enola Holmes is a big inspiration on that element.
I just watched those movies and I absolutely loved them. They were so much fun.
It was so delightful. That, and then like shows like the Irregulars and other things and elements where you see the working class and lower kind of suffering. And so the city's in tension and turmoil, and you are there to solve a murder. That's like what draws you in. There's something weird happening and murders, and finally someone cares to bring you in. But when you arrive, things get weird, because you start investigating what would have been a simple murder, and you start to uncover that there's more going on. A tension between the upper class and lower class, the aggressions of these monstrous creatures outside the walls that are trying to attack from time to time, and other things. Very Attack on Titan inspired for that. As people are just trying to live their lives, but the rich don't mind it. And this starts to build as you find out there's some strange occult nature going on inside of the city that's causing a lot of problems. So you're just kind of living a normal investigation and finding out that there's monsters attacking the city, serial killers in the streets, people doing occult things in unknown places, all while, well, Frankenstein is doing something to, in theory, help the city. The biggest part of the adventure is you find to kind of search what that help means and how you can make a difference to the city, or how the city can make you different.
Ooh, it's like the intrigue. I'm like, I want to know more. Ah, dang. Now I'm like, I can't keep asking questions, because like now I'm like, we have to keep things hush hush. But the choice to make it 3 acts. Now that I'm assuming that's the narrative driven aspect of it. But why was it important to have the 3 acts versus like chapters or books, or kind of like Avatar, or what was that why do you guys come to that conclusion for that in particular?
Is that also me?
You have really good points on it. You're the one that like kind of sold me on it. So yeah.
So this is because we are not trying to design just a game. We are telling a story, and we want you to also tell a story. And I took all my experience in theater, acting, and movies, and my unique neurodivergency that loves movies and breaks them down into chunks that like kind of make sense. Stories are best told in 3s. Jokes are 3, stories in 3s, everything in 3s. And that aspect,
that's true.
That's the delivery method, because stories are introduction, middle, end. Whatever it is, it's always the start, the alternative conflict, and then a resolution climax. And so Daughter of Frankenstein is an opera in which the overture begins, which brings you into chapter 1. So technically you can enter Promethea and do all kinds of things before the opera starts. You can meet a lot of the NPCs before even starting chapter 1. You can do any of the side quests before starting chapter 1. But once the overture begins on chapter 1, the play begins. And the way we thought about it is that the story continues. It has a natural flow.
Mhm.
The party can choose to start the overture and do other things. Then the story will continue without
The
them.
background is going on with or without you, and it
And
is intense.
And the longer you ignore it, the worse it becomes for you. So you kind of are like, you get forcibly pulled into the story, whether or not you want to be involved, because you're stuck in the environment. And so it's like that essence that the opera follows the scenes, because every time you have the set pieces, you go through the scene, and when it's done, like a play, they break down the set into the next set, they set it all up, and then you see that moment. There's not a lot of
Mhm.
extra rooms, it's not all these
Yeah.
dungeons, it's what you see on stage. So what we have that exact model of, you have 3 acts with their own set pieces, and each act is divided into its pieces, and every piece uniquely is also standalone, meaning you could just jump
Okay.
in to act 2 if you're a higher level, and act 1 can be cutscene. You could just say which resolution you chose, and it leads into the next act. So
Oh, that's
it
great.
allows you to really pick and choose your story path, and that benefit means that the story could always be different, because each act has choices that affect the rest of the play. So it's a game where you get to make your choices. That way you don't feel like it's taken from you, but
Yeah.
you get to enjoy telling the story rather than seeing a map with 78 rooms and you've got to figure out which room has what thing. It's
Yeah.
like, no, this is the situation. Here is the scene. Play it how you need to and get to conclusion A, B, or C. And we have to decide like which ones are possible. There's
Mhm.
other options, but they always
I'd say
lead
it's
to
D&D though, so like
Yeah.
parties can do whatever
For
they
sure.
here are
want.
things going on, but they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
And that because of that, we give
Yeah.
you the freedom to tell whatever story you want. But if you ignore the story will reach conclusion A, B, or C, or you can help choose one of those. And so it really gives you the freedom to tell this story as this is
Yes.
happening, and then you could end up missing the entire act 1 and 2 because you're too busy doing something else.
Well, and that's like you
Yep.
were explaining this to me, and then I learned how to play this game called Vossen by Free League, and they have
Oh,
a
yes.
similar
Okay.
mechanic. And so by playing that, I understood what you were trying to say, because they have
Mhm.
it's like you start a mystery in Vossen, and I can't remember what they're called. Not conflicts.
They're called countdown and catastrophe.
Countdowns and
Oh, okay.
catastrophes. So things
Countdowns
are
and catastrophes.
happening.
Okay.
And then, like, are you going to deal with what's happening or not? And so
Mhm.
then we recently played a game of Austin, and I was a Chaos Goblin, and I ran in and I just started, like,
As one is. That's always the choice.
right. I just ran in and killed an NPC and was just, like, doing all this stuff. We went straight into battle, and, like, this cult drama was happening in the background and sacrifices. And I had no idea. We finished the game, and he's like, yeah, so they, like, sacrifice people and stuff. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Like, so
Wow.
I could have stopped that. Oh no!
yeah, I want to say it from the GM perspective. Yeah, there was an investigation where they could have found all these things about a cult that's been doing these things and why people went
Mhm.
missing, and instead they went to the church where they heard there was a creature maybe, and just
We will not get
immediately
into the
start.
deep dark details of
No,
what
just
happened.
they just went into what
We
a lot of
can't
parties
talk about it
do
on.
is interrogation. You know, that aggressive nature, which
Mhm.
caused the countdown to escalate because they wouldn't stop interrogating the individual. And I'm
Something
like,
always
well,
happening. Yeah.
and I'm like, things are happening, and they're still focused on this fight, this interrogation. I'm like, the story is going to keep. They're going to do their sacrifice, whether or not you
Yep.
involve yourself. So they finished their whole thing, survived the encounter, dragging some of the. Half the party's like basically dying. One is basically broken in mind, and they're dragging their companions out, and then they see the cult covered in blood as they're praising their sacrifice. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, you didn't investigate them. Like, the story was going on, and you chose to do other
Yep.
things that instigated. And so, like, that's the
So that's to
opera.
be
Like,
expected in this aspect as well.
no
with
matter what
Daughter
you
of
do,
Frankenstein.
there's so much to miss, which means you can play it over and
Over and over again.
and have a different experience without having a bunch of randomization to make it harder. It's a
Mhm.
clear story, and the GM can choose which way to go. And if the party goes a different path, you have a countdown with what to do, but you have the power to choose how it happens.
Yeah, I love that because it's the playability and like, can you go back to it? And also, too, when you're playing with different groups, different things can happen, and you can be like, "What? Mind blown!" Or you're
Oh,
just like, "I had no idea. I didn't do that with this group, or with this GM."
I had no idea about these people over here doing this, or these people doing this. And that's why it's also built with every act has a major exploration and component,
Mhm.
social component, and combat. So if you're a party full of barbarians want to kick down doors, there is a path built for you. But if you're a bunch of bards who want to try to charm your way through, there's a path for you. And also, if you're rangers and wizards who are detectives and you're like, I want to explore the city and this, there is a path built for you. And you can mix and match. So your story can change just because of your play style. So you could play it again with a different character, or even the same character with a slightly different approach, and you will get to enjoy the play from a slightly different perspective.
That's terrific. I absolutely love this, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited for all of the different options. As a player, I know I love the fact that there is that, if I do something, my character does something that's totally opposite of what the group is doing, how that can impact and affect things as a whole. It's always so interesting to me. Now, going into character building, are there any unique like character subclasses or features or certain aspects of the character building process that's different from, again, just some of the other adventures that some people may have come across in 5e?
So I will let Jay also mostly take over this one because that's a lot of mechanical stuff, and we've talked a lot about it. But
I want to hear your ideas first, because
Mhm.
we got to hear from Beth the Bard what different things were going on when you were trying to write everything down for the inspiration for this.
So one thing that I kind of struggled with, because it's 5e compatible, and I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this in D&D if I want it this way. And then we're like, let's go ahead and, again, we're going to do things, we're going to get some 5e going, and then we'll try other stuff later. But one thing was, I was like, I don't want fantasy elements. I don't want fantasy races in this. I think that it should be human based. And Curse of Strahd is actually like all the NPCs, the setting is very human, but people still come in as like dragonborn and fairies and things like that. And so with this one, it's like, obviously it's 5e compatible, so you can play it however you want within 5e parameters, but it's built for humans. It's specified for that. And so that was my big thing, was I was like, I want humans.
Was it also to the aspect of the fact that there's, again, cause and effect, different things that could happen, raising of the stakes, that it kind of puts that oh, if I do this, I might die when you wanted to try to do that? Okay.
Absolutely. I want the players to feel a little bit smaller. Despite the fact that we're doing tier 2 and 3, which is pretty high level, it just means that we're ramping up the stakes so much more.
But it also makes you think outside the box more, I feel, because you have to start getting creative. You have to get creative when you have certain limitations. But it doesn't mean that you're not able to do some really cool stuff, because it sounds like you have some really awesome things. I don't know if there's unique items as well, or I'm assuming that weaponry would be also to be kind of different in this setting.
We have guns.
Ooh.
I wanted guns. I was like, we have to have guns.
All the guns.
Yeah, there's guns.
Which my playgroup players love. They're all like, I have this gun and this gun and this gun. They're like screw swords, no swords, all guns.
No swords. Yeah, it is when you're playing like a gunslinger. It's a little bit. It's different. It's definitely different, but there's some fun elements to that too. Now, any unique creatures or monsters, without any spoilers, like any that are kind of created already that you can share that might be interesting?
So I have one that I'm obsessed with, and I've mentioned it at every interview, so I apologize if you already heard about this. It's my favorite.
I'm like, I haven't heard it, and some of our viewers probably haven't.
There is, in Annihilation, there is a bear, and some people listening to this are like, oh my god, yes.
I'm like,
that bear. Where like, and it's a little bit spoilery for the movie, but like, it's so good, I don't even care. There's this scene, right, where like they're going through the woods and stuff. This one of the people is attacked and disappears, definitely by like a bear-like creature. They're not entirely sure, right? And then later down the line, they are in a situation, and you hear that woman screaming again, and they're like, oh my god, she didn't die, she needs help. And they like look around the corner, and this bear that is like its skin is like disintegrated off. It's like half skeletal, all this stuff.
God.
And every time it opens its mouth, rather than like the bear noises coming out, it's the woman screaming the exact like things that she was screaming when it killed her.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, I have goosebumps just talking about it. I was like, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. And so I call it the Mimic Bear. And it was the very first thing I was like, this has to be statted immediately.
Oh
this
my
is my favorite
gosh.
thing in the whole world. It has to be done. And like everything else is tiny compared to this.
That is so eerie. Oh my goodness. It's like, even though it's, you know, you can kind of, and also too, just imagining, because everyone has different, like, what screams are more like the skin crawl kind of, or goosebumps set form. Oh man, that's awesome. That's really fun and really creepy. Now I'm gonna be like, nightmare fuel.
Right? So that among other ones, but Jay. Oh, cool.
Any favorite that you have so far of what it's kind of brewing?
My favorite right now is the for those that have an aversion to small insects, it is a mannequin nest. The mannequin nest is literally a mannequin whose body is filled with maggots that allows it to move. Very much like Oogie Boogie,
that's like
but
my
a mannequin.
nightmare. That's my living nightmare.
I actually had to cut that out of my Saturday playtest game because one of the players was like, so this is a huge line for me. I was like, cool.
However, I did have notes for those that are like have that aversion to small insects. I just say use alternative swarm things. Like you can, it doesn't have to be maggots. Maggots is just what I use because of the
so
narrative
gross.
I was driving.
Yeah.
But
and visually, like you can imagine.
And it has a lot to do with like decaying bodies and things like that too. So it very much so goes with the theme.
And so, but I'm like, it doesn't have to be. And that's the other thing. In all our narrative pieces, we are aware that not everyone has the same flavor, taste, enjoyment. So all of our options have alternatives to make it more acceptable. So like for the maggot mannequin, there is options to have other insects or other types of things to make the story still functional without removing the quality of the story. Because as much as we want our story to be told, we want it to be comfortable while also terrifying, you know?
Yeah.
So but
that's
the maggot
importance of session 0, y'all.
Yes.
But yes, the mannequin nest is probably my favorite, particularly for other story reasons. But the mannequin nest was truly, I spent so much time crafting that thing, and it is so beautiful, including the magic items around it. So when you're playing, you find a mannequin, maybe you want to be real thorough in your check.
Ooh. That's a hint. So make sure to write that down, folks.
Oh, now I'm gonna have to throw in a red herring mannequin somewhere.
Oh yeah. Mannequin, first off, it's an urbanish city where Birkeland is, so there's gonna have clothing boutiques. So that's, I think, what makes it the most terrifying for most people is when you have an idea that there is a mannequin creature out there, and there's shops with mannequins that wear
puppet
clothes.
Shows and stuff are like a thing, though.
Yeah. So you're sitting there wondering, thinking. So I'm putting that horror in your mind now. So when you see a mannequin when you play, you're like, is this the one? Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe. Like, is it not? Now you just literally, Beth, you just mentioned something that I was going to actually ask about as far as the lines and veils within this, because of the fact that some people may not know, some people might have an idea of horror and what might come up, but what are some things that, you know, if you're a DM, you should make sure to keep in mind for that session 0, just so then that way the players are, you know, prepared.
So for sure, with any horror game, especially if you're doing a long-term one, you need to not just have session 0 and cover your things like lines and veils, safety tools, stuff like that, but you need to do regular check-ins for them.
That's really good.
Because especially in a long-term campaign, different sections of the story are going to have different focuses and things. You're not going to be able to cover everything, I think, in the first session and have anyone remember it. So doing those regular check-ins, you know, hey, this next part is likely going to include this kind of content. How are we feeling about that? Not just, you tell me what you're uncomfortable with. Like, no, here are things that may very likely be included, but then here are other things that might not, but let's go ahead and check through, do check-in, all that kind of stuff. and I run almost exclusively horror games, and so
Yes.
that is that's something I'm already pretty used to doing. But yeah, having those tools, and that's actually something as part of uh because we're gonna have like the book itself, and then we have like the player handout that you can give to
Mhm.
your players and things like that. And there's going to be some organizational tools for the GMs, which includes like a template for organizing these lines and veils and session 0
Oh, that's great.
activities for your table to just keep it all organized for you. Because we're
And
professional DMs,
Yeah.
so we're always like trying to keep things organized.
And
to add,
it's important.
and to add on that, we actually, because it's act system and each act has scenes, the
Mhm.
benefit of that structure is that each scene has its own content warning for things that are in there, so that the GM is prepared as well.
Oh,
Like
that's
if
really
there's
good.
going to be a type of monster that could be horrifying, we're gonna be like, hey, content warning has like insect style or this or that. Adjust as necessary, because
Mhm.
the GM is always willing to able to like decrease the horror, decrease these elements. And so the scene system, rather than having a dungeon crawl, which will be real hard to measure, the scene, and the scene should include A, B, C creature. But if they're not liking this or this or this, providing the alternatives up front for the GM, so that they don't have to. For some GMs that are like, I can't figure out what to do, everything has options to make your experience easier, because that's what I know myself and Beth need, is like alternatives, especially in the moment, is hard to come up with. But if you have suggestions to reference, it makes your life easier as a GM, because you at least have a jumping point. Like, you don't have to use our
Yeah.
suggestions, but you're like, oh, okay, instead of using insects, I can use these things, and then I don't like these, but it gives me an idea for this. Because at the end of the day, it's about the comfort for everyone, including the GM. And they may
Yes.
like horror, but maybe even they're a little timid, and they're like, I want to be able to do it,
Yeah.
but I can't, so let me do this.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think that's
GM lines and veils, like people don't talk about that enough, but
No,
that's
they
really
don't.
important. Like at my
Mhm.
sessions, I'll be like, these are the things I'm not comfortable with, so I expect you guys at the table to respect that as well. And
That's important too.
yeah.
And that's just really helpful, the fact that you have those different options there. What else I found very helpful, because I read that the book in general is ADHD friendly, which this is the first time that I've actually seen that, with the overall image in like the imagery and layout of the book. Now, do either or both of you actually struggle with ADHD? And then why was this such an important process when creating this book? Beth?
We both are diagnosed with ADHD, but we both have it very differently. Because,
Okay.
by the way, if anybody knows, like things like autism and ADHD, they're not only on the scale, but they present differently, especially between different types of hormones and things like that. So so mine is, I struggle a lot with reading retention and things like that. I can't focus long enough on what I'm reading. I don't retain things as well. It takes, like, for example, like Jay and I could both sit down and read the same 5e content, and because of the way his brain works and his ADHD is different, he can read and be like, got it, okay, cool. And I'm like, I read it 3 times. Can you read it out loud to me, please? So, that also goes with being a hands-on writer.
Relatable.
So yeah, I basically have to design things in a way that I know is beneficial for me, and that happens to help other people as well, with my type of ADHD. So and I've learned a lot about accessible design as well over the last several years of getting into layout design in the TTRPG community. And so it's like it's simple things like using sans serif for your body font. That helps with people like dyslexia and things like that.
I had no
Lots
idea.
of lots of padding, lots of spacing. You want to use slightly larger fonts than industry standard, which people struggle with because it makes things cost more, but also it is better for the readers. Using a lot of imagery, breaking up text, thing like that, which is something I learned actually as a professional blogger, because your goal as a blogger is to make sure that if somebody lands on a page, they don't get too overwhelmed. You know, anxiety comes really strong with ADHD as well. They don't get too overwhelmed, and you can keep their attention deficit, right? So with blogging, you know, words are broken up more rather than you know, these big blocks of text where it's like you just, you know, oh, I hit tab, so that counts. No, you break it up. They are separate sections. You know, you don't take a section and words all the way across the page. You want to have your columns. You want padding around things. You want those images, but not too much color and chaos. You can actually use imagery to help pull attention in certain ways by keeping things very specifically within certain tones and like a color palette, and then breaking out of that for moments that are like really important. It's like, we really need your attention on this. Like it is highlighted in yellow. This is, you know, so then it's like, oh, got it. So it's like all those little things, distinguishing info using like bolding, again with the colors, bullet points are a huge thing. And I've actually noticed Wizards of the Coast and their newer content has started doing some of this stuff. I was reading Radiant Citadel last night on stream, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this isn't like this in previous books where they get to a chapter and they're like, okay, so this is what this chapter is about, and they bullet point like the main most important stuff, and then they repeat the information later in the paragraph form and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my god, because that repetition is really, really critical for that retention of information. So I know I just like jumped in. I'm like, I feel very passionate about this.
No, it's great because I feel like this is going to be really helpful for other creators who are making stories and their own adventures, and trying to make sure that it is accessible and ADHD friendly as well. I think that's very important for the community as a whole.
Yeah. So yeah, we're designing the main book as much like that. It's going to end up being, you know, bigger because of that. Jay's like, gotta keep it under 300 pages. I'm like, okay, try. And then we're also going to have like the I forgot what they're called, the EPUB and stuff like that, so that you can, if you need to pull it into like a Kindle and make the words bigger, change the font to open dyslexic, use background coloring, things like that to read for people with like dyslexia and stuff like that. We are also, I don't know how, but we're going to get audio options included. And I think for starters, I'm literally just we're just going to create an audio file. Here's an audio version of the book so that you can read, like listen to while you read. But eventually I'd like to have a more interactive option through our website. I just haven't figured out how that's going to look yet. But so having a background in K-commerce and
process, you know?
Having a background in K-commerce and like e-courses and things like that, I'm like, I think we could use that format to break things down in the book and include audio and visual aspects for people to watch or listen to help with that that content absorption as well. But anyways, did you have anything to say, Jay?
Oh, no, not really. My only thing was my ADHD gets overwhelmed with information because I add too much. So the more there is, the harder it is for me, because then I over prepare my brain because I can't take notes. So if there's too much going on, I can't write notes because I can't remember what I wanted to put. So that's actually the biggest the other reason why the scene structure is why we've gone rather than the crawl structure, because scenes allows your brain to highlight emphasis on what's going on in the moment without adding thoughts. You have this scene that's going on before you. You don't need to know what's in every room following. You just get to know what's in this scene. And so that's why each structure is also set up with like redundancy, where we're like, this is the setting, this is the synopsis, here's the introduction, now here's the scene. Now that you've read the scene, remember that you should have covered this, this, and that. Did you move on to the next scene when you're ready? And then at the end of that, we're like, all right, so did you go over your exploration points, your social points, your combat points? If not, you can go over this provides options. Now that you have wrapped this section up, move on to the next major scene. So it's very much like a flow map that you can follow, and it helps you go, like, if you feel like, because there's a lot of times as a GM, I'm like, did I miss something in my session prep I didn't go over? And so the thing says, all your stuff is like, hey, here's what should have been covered. If you didn't, did you want to? If not, move on. And then carry on the story. And so it allows you to feel prepared without having to prepare too much or too little, whatever way you fit. It provides your information in the path and says add as much as you want or strip as much as you need. But here's the core, this piece
And you
right
best
here.
believe there's going to be handouts and printables to help,
great.
to help
terrific.
GMs like, okay, I'm gonna need this NPC. Oh, here's quick NPC information. Oh, nice. Okay, you know,
Yep.
because I live on those things.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I have been that player that's like, what's their name? Bob. You know, it's
Yep.
those moments with all the tabs, and it's like the
Mhm.
one NPC name that you forgot. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to know so that way, if I need to go and ask that person something later, so I'm asking for a real reason. Like, I'm not trying to just like break the GM, but sometimes you have those players who want those details. So
Yeah,
that's great
and
to
that's
have that.
actually we have in my we're as we go through the edits, we make sure we follow through. Every NPC that has been brought up in the main story or side quest or anywhere is then re-emphasized in that section, and then also there's an entire appendix with every NPC,
Oh,
gender,
that's pretty
some
cool.
other, not their stat block, just their bio.
Okay.
So that way, if you need something to jump from, you're like, this is what their life is like, some details, their personality, goals, aspirations, and it's all there for reference. If you're like, oh, what was that? The person who owned the bar, that place? You're like, cool. This location
Bam.
had this NPC, solid, and that has a very nice little paragraph bio
Yeah,
for you.
that's
to have
enough
as
to
a
work off of.
and it's perfect for the play, and it's enough that the players can have it without spoiling anything, because it's the truthful information that you can gain at first glance or immediate questions. Deeper stuff is for the GM to decide on the story they want to weave. But if you want to know who the barkeep is, that he has 3 kids, and that him and his husband have been running the bar for 25 years, and his favorite food is waffles, and waffles is a good thing to make him like you, like those are little things to have in there. And then larger NPCs, because Beth specializes in NPC profiles, they have a grander piece, so that you can be like, they have a higher importance, so there's more to them that we want you to know. And then the smaller ones, because there are, no small roles, just small people, so you have that, and you have that person with what matters, because that's important for me, because I love interconnected stories, but I sometimes forget my own NPCs every single time. But the format means you could make an NPC and just copy the format that Beth has made with the guide and be like, here's my NPC, here's the information, solid handout set. So it's very like interactive, that you can make it even more accessible for your style by using the resources that we've already pre-structured. Hashtag Beth design is best.
I love that. Hashtag Beth design is best. Yes, I'm gonna try to. That's gonna be the new hashtag, you guys, going around town in the community. Now, I have to say congratulations again for the Kickstarter already hitting over 10K in funding. I'm doing the claps that won't make too much noise, messing up the audio, because that is an accomplishment in itself. That's not an easy thing to accomplish, and you guys killed it. But there's still plenty of time left for people who want to get their hands on the adventure, to help to unlock some really cool content. So I want to know, and I'm sure some of the people who are watching want to know, some of the cool, awesome tiers that you guys have for the project. And if there's certain things, that they can look forward to if they're trying to hit those extra tiers to unlock the extra items and maybe additional adventures.
I will do this one, I guess. Yes, I'm like literally pulling up the Kickstarter. I'm like, what tiers do we have again? So actually, this Kickstarter, we have kept it very simple. We wanted it to remain mostly focused on the product, which is the book. So we don't have a lot of things. Like, I wanted to do miniatures. I want to do all these different types of dice. I wanted to do DM screens. I wanted to have everything. And I was like, okay, we don't have the budget to get that kind of thing set up. We're a team of 2, and honestly,
small but mighty.
Like, we're not trying to sell DM screens. We're trying to sell a book. We're trying to fund this. So
story.
It's pretty focused. So we've got our tiers include, like, you can just get the PDF. We've got a Roll20 module and a Foundry module. We've got a hardcover. There are a couple of tiers where I will throw in a map print of Promethea. It's beautiful, beautiful artwork done by Salvatera. And another one where I was like,
of them? or for all the art in the book, is it the same artist, or do you have multiple artists?
No, we have lots of artists.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a heavy amount of artists. So, but we're doing like I wanted to do like tons of art prints, but I was like, okay, let's just stay focused right now. So it's the map on one tier, and then I think our highest tier that includes the book stuff, it's a map, a set of noir dice, they're all black. And then the hardcover and PDF. We've also got an option to where you can be a prominent NPC of Promethea, and we basically take you and whatever you're vibing with, turn you into an NPC, and you get a custom portrait that's very, Edward Gorey, Tim Burton inspired. We had one table. We're doing 2 different tables, where it's a 6-week run through of the game, so that DMs who, because I know for me, being a hands-on learner, something I like to do is play a game before I run it, because I can immerse in the world and feel more comfortable running it myself. So we've got our first table is already completely sold out, a 6-week run through before you get the book in your hands, and then we opened up a second one, and there are 4 spots left. Yeah, and then the Doc Angel investor for those who have extra money and really want to support the project, which includes everything. Yeah, I think I
saw there was potentially tarot cards, possibly, if people were to give more towards
Jay. He's so mad about it. I was like, tarot. He's like, why?
It's chaos. It's like the deck of many things. It's like tarot. But it's awesome because I've started to see more people kind of add this to their campaigns, and it presents something really kind of eerie, because sometimes it literally, the tarot is literally on brand with that character, and whatever they pull. I think I saw it with Black Dice Society, and I thought that was so awesome that tarot was being used, and it was really cool what happened as a result. So I'm excited if that's potentially you guys who are watching, and investing in this amazing project. There's some really cool stuff, so check out what they have ready for you guys.
Yep, tarot is one of the stretch goals. So.
Yeah, I already wrote notes on what that may also expand into, because Beth made that promise because she really wanted tarot, and then it was supposed to be small things, but Beth is super excited about tarot and mentions it in different formats every time. So as a also added benefit, there are some subclasses that'll be added in at core, some that are part of stretches that if we get through, which does include, if we do get to the tarot stretch, I am going to add in a few more tarot based mechanics, including possibly as random encounters, but subclasses, spells, and other things. I will even put a note that because of how much Beth loved it, she doesn't know that I officially have put this on my docket and finished an initial draft. There is, for those that like playing warlocks, and you know how warlocks work, you have your patron, which could be many things, but the pacts. You can have Pact of the Blade, Pact of Talisman. However, I believe it's important for them to have a Pact of Gaming, so that they too can use a deck of cards as their pact. Boom. And I've already got some pieces on it, including some invocations that are drafted, but they do need to reach that stretch goal, so I can dedicate some more time into sitting on that and play testing, because that is some deep mechanics and a lot of fun stuff, including the Tarot Bard, the College of Unknown. I have no official name, but it is a tarot card based bard. There's other things on my tarot docket, because every time she mentioned it, I'm like, all right, just
I was like,
like, please.
So you can actually play with a tarot deck as a character, whether or not you can use the mechanics that are built in, or there is the option to actually use a tarot deck for your character to really.
Which I want to create a custom tarot deck for this setting.
I already know. I actually already have what each of the suits are, and yeah, I already know what you're doing. It's already done.
The artwork.
I know the artwork. I love the artwork. Is so beautiful already from what I've seen from the Kickstarter, and I am so excited. I'm sure everyone who's watching this is also too really excited for it, because it just kind of just really gets you in that mood, and you're ready to just dive into the setting as a whole.
Moody art.
Yeah, moody. It's such a mood. Such a mood. But that's so again, folks, you want all this, all the goodies, so be sure to check this out. And if you can, just let everyone know, and I'm sure that we'll probably be adding the link for people to also find, but if you want to let them know what the link is currently, for those who are watching, where they can go to find this information.
You can do it. You can do it correctly this time. I believe in you. Do it.
To check out the Kickstarter, you can just go to Frankenstein5e.com.
.com.
We did it.
He's been on streams like, go to Frankenstein 5e. Frankenstein 5e. I'm like, it's .com.
I keep forgetting .com. But yeah, you can go to Frankenstein5e.com to check out the Kickstarter, check out all the tiers and all those things. And you can also, check out our stuff on social media. Beth's posting art and updates constantly. I would be posting updates, but all my stuff is words and I can't show that off. But if you're a backer, even at the smallest tier, you get updates, which means as we're rolling out stuff, you will be the first to see some of the stuff as it's starting to roll out into the final edits and so on. So backing, even at the smallest tier, means you get to guarantee yourself on that first batch of updates. So every piece matters and every contribution has value.
It's never too small. Never too small.
Never at all. We have some people who just back the simple $1 because they want to be.
Which still makes me like cry on the inside because I'm like, you didn't have to and you did.
Every dollar gets you guys closer to that next tier. It really does make a difference.
And oh yeah, the next stretch goal I believe is an adventure written by Jen is Online, who sent us our pitch. I believe I'm probably gonna. Do you have the Kickstarter name? Adventure. Oh, what's the adventure name? What's the adventure name? You have
the
the
adventure
Kickstarter
is called A Rose by Any Other Color, and it is some plant horror in the science world of Prometheus. Oh my god, I'm just so excited because like I love plants, and when Jen pitched it, I was like, this one this right here. I'm gonna make the cover.
Little Shop of Horrors.
There is a bit of that vibe in what we've gotten so far, and we have a lot of our other writers still have dockets for more things. So the more stretch goals, the more we can kind of refine some pieces. And I do know that Beth wants to do more with this. So the further we can get on this first project, the easier it is to do the rest to make Promethea just a little more colorful. Even if that color is just red.
I want to just keep supporting, like obviously we're going to do the next book. We got this folk horror book coming up, and then we've got an Elizabeth Bathory inspired vampire campaign coming up pretty immediately after that. But I don't want to ever create something like this and then be like, okay, next. I have 1,000 ideas. I just want to keep making supplements for it. I want other people to come in and make supplements for it, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, so for the gamers out there, he's already working on the next wave of DLC, so get your season pass.
Yeah, stay ready. Get ready, guys. Now, can you please, because Jaden already sort of did a little tiny segue there, can you please let everyone know where they can find you both? And also to get those little tidbits of those updates. I'm going to start with Beth the Bard.
I am everywhere at It's Beth the Bard. Sorry. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and now I'm on Twitch. I'm actually going to make affiliate today, supposedly. I don't know what that means yet, really, because but the stats say that. So Twitch, it's Beth the Bard. I also BethTheBard.com. I try to keep completely updated with all the random projects and things going on, which is usually a lot at the same time. Frankenstein 5e for the Kickstarter. SheIsTheAncient.com if you want to pick up that book from DM's Guild. What am I forgetting?
The Castle.
The Castle, which you can find the link to that on BethTheBard.com.
And then on the 21st.
On the 21st.
On the 21st.
Oh, I'm running a game. It is my second time GMing a live stream since I did She is the Ancient. I'm very shy about GMing on live streams. So other than Jasper's Game Week this year, which I will be GMing for, on the 21st.
And that blows my mind because you're so great. So I'm just like, what? Why?
Just, Anxiety, haha. Yeah, so on the 21st, Women of D&D / Women of TTRPG, we're kind of having a brand movement ever since
Mhm.
January. It's going to be, I think, our first actual play on the Twitch channel. And I will be running a Promethea one-shot, and we don't have all our players lined up yet, but I do know that Alicia Marie is going to be one of the players.
Yes.
And it's gonna be so much fun.
Another friend of the initiative order. It's gonna be. It's gonna be spectacular. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, Jaden King, if you don't mind sharing your socials and information as well.
Well, if you didn't know me by now you do. But just in case, it's Jaden King. You can find me on all social media at It's Jaden King. That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, AOL, Messenger Pigeon. Whatever you use, you can use that. I've also trained Smoke to work smoke signals at It's Jaden King. So I got you if you need me. I do storytelling. That's like all I live for, is to create stories that are impactful, change lives, and represent people that don't get a chance to have stories told. So if you want to play games with me, you can check out my profile on Start Playing Games. Oh, who knew? It's at It's Jaden King over there. I am also over on GaryCon Live on the March to GaryCon as member of Gaxpax, playing Tavish Lazido, having a great experience with my Hexblade Rogue. I'm going to be at D&D in a Castle, running people through my own personal urban fantasy deep breath, Grimlight, where people get to enjoy urban magic, where cars are just as likely to be as dangerous as a wizard with a fireball. That's your choice on how you want to deal with that. That's it about me, I believe. I'm not running any DOF yet. I have to lock in a few more details, but maybe soon. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Well, we're running DOF. We've got spots through the Kickstarter.
Yeah, so if you want to do that, you can also check that out. I'm probably going to try to do some Promethea, more play testing. So if you're interested in the play testing, definitely join. If you're a part of the Kickstarter, you'll get first access on play testing, and then later on we'll be doing more bits and pieces with some of these things, because I got a lot of mechanical edits I want to verify. And also, if you want to collaborate with me, you can ask me to come around and do some writing. I do classes, subclasses, magic items, storytelling, all kinds of things. I'll help you out. Beth has a point. I said something wrong.
No, you didn't say anything. Come on. No.
I ramble. I know I do.
You talking about what you're running at the castle reminded me I should also say that once in a while for mine. So what I'm going to be running at the castle is actually the content from our next publication project, which is the folk horror. It's like folk horror and plant horror stuff. So that is what I will be running at the castle. And then he'll be running his anime stuff, which is super cool. I listen to it all the time and I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yes.
But anyways,
I've had the honor of playing a few of the different one-shots.
Wild.
It's such a fun ride. So much fun. So
it's been refined, so it gets wild. I have refined everything, and it is more anime, more black than ever. I want to emphasize it is beautifully black.
Chef's kiss.
Very into the Spider-Verse vibes.
Yes,
in the way.
That is actually,
all of it.
If I could ever describe the model of what Grimlight is imagine if Into the Spider-Verse hung out with Kingdom Hearts.
Bam. Yeah, that's it. Sold. Oh my gosh, you guys are both insanely talented, insanely wonderful. I just want to thank you for joining me for Interview with Monster, for this amazing discussion focusing on your spectacular Daughter of Frankenstein TTRPG horror campaign. Again, folks, you guys have all the information. Be sure to give these folks, amazing folks, a follow, and be sure to give all the love and support for this campaign, because trust me, you're going to want in on all of this, because it is going to be phenomenal. So thank you guys so much. I'm Utahime. I am Utahime. And I was so happy to be able to bring you guys this awesome interview with Beth the Bard and Jaden King. And until next time, guys, stay spooky. Bye.